They got the right people for the NFL Draft Show. The two biggest college football heads in CitrusTV are here tonight to bring you everything you need to know about the selections. Everyone's favorite ringtone, ba-na-na-na, is going down. Thursday night, we're breaking it down.
Now we get to use all the time we probably should be spending with our girlfriends, but actually we spend watching college football to some pretty good use. Also, Johns Hopkins lacrosse is back.
They're back?
They're back.
They might be back. Three-way tie at the Big Ten. We'll talk about all of that. We'll have Jack Gordon, everyone's favorite FM grad in the juicer, and so much more. It's all on No Pulp, and it starts right now.
Sonny DeShero from Auburn. The freshman never win. The freshman never win championships.
Jeremy, you are an absolute sweat.
Cleveland the catch. Good if it does. He had it.
Wow, it's getting serious.
Frankly, I'm pretty embarrassed.
Bang!
All day life.
Well. One more No Pulp for John Eads and Ian Unsworth, and it's the best possible time to have us on a No Pulp because it doesn't matter what you're driving through, whether it's snow, rain, sleet, or fog, it's tough. Just like the last week of the NFL Draft. There's so much smoke put out there by NFL teams. We're here to help you dissect all of it.
We don't know what's true. We don't know what's fake. We're going to try and give you our best guesses and some of the best players in this year's draft. I mean, you can do all the mock drafts you want, and we have no idea how this is going to go, but what we can tell you is who the best players are.
Because we watched a lot of football in the fall, in the winter, after March Madness, we went back, watched some more. So we are ready to go. We got a chock-full show tonight, and we're starting with news that just came out today. The Texans told Peter Schrager that they might be passing on a quarterback at pick number 2. So, John, is that a smart choice? Because there's a lot of talent at the QB spot.
Well, it was interesting. They said that they want to embrace the struggle and wait for better days ahead. And you know what? I think it is kind of smart because what it really depends on is how much you value this year's draft class. Do you have a guy that you see that is in the QB draft class that you like and you think could be the future of the program? Davis Mills was not that. If you see a defensive player that you think could fit the mold, go for them. And to be honest with you, Ian, the situation Houston is in, all signs are pointing to the fact that Carolina's drafting Bryce Young number 1.
They'd be stupid not to.
Exactly. So what it comes down to then is, do you want C.J. Stroud? Do you want Anthony Richardson? Do you want Will Levis? Or do you want somebody else? Do you want to trade back? There's a lot of different options. So you really need to be smart about this pick because you can build your team up right now and wait till next year's class, or you can take a gamble on a guy you like right now.
Well, if Bryce Young falls to 2, you'd be stupid to not take him. But if C.J. Stroud is there, in my opinion, that's the dude you need. C.J. Stroud is going to be solid from day one. Yes, the OSU quarterback stigma is around him. I mean, they haven't had a great quarterback in the league. Justin Fields might be that guy. But he threw for over 4,000 yards this year. I mean, the guy makes smart decisions. He makes great, accurate throws. And he played in an offense that threw the ball a lot. He was around a lot of NFL talent. It's a scheme with guys that he'll see in the league. So he should be comfortable stepping in to the Texans, where they don't have a lot of receivers, but they got a lot of picks. They can fill that void quickly in the next 2 drafts. I don't want to wait until 2024 if I'm the Texans, right? Here's the thing. You've got Caleb Williams, Drake May, but there's so many questions. There's so many different ways you can fall out of that pick. I mean, look what Lovie Smith did. He juked them out of the number 1 pick this year. So I take C.J. Stroud. I let Anthony Richardson fall where he may. Maybe that's the Colts. Maybe that's the Raiders. Maybe that's the Seahawks. He's a dude that needs a year or 2. The Texans need their guy now. You can't play around and just wait, because then someone's getting fired.
That's fair. I mean, every year you think about next year's draft class, and you're like, these guys are not good. So we'll see what happens there. What I can say is don't draft Will Levis. Okay, let's get into those skill position players because you talk about C.J. Stroud and how he kind of needs that skill position talent to be good. It's interesting because the running back position is so undervalued, and this year it seems like the wide receiver position, there's not really a clear-cut number 1. Who do you think is the first skill position player taken in this year's draft?
Jackson Smith and Jigba. Okay. C.J. Stroud's teammate. And the Texans had the 13th pick. They could snag him and double up on Buckeyes. It would make so much sense. JSN had 90 catches in 2021 at OSU. Like, that guy just gets open. Yes, he's not the speediest guy in the world. He ran a 4.5, but his horizontal movement, his lateral quickness, his separation is elite level. And the Texans need someone who can be that guy. Have 75 catches as a rookie. You want JSN right away. Bijan Robinson, any of these running backs, it's not worth a first-round pick.
Not in the first round.
There's only one running back that's won a Super Bowl in the past 10 years after being a first-round pick. That was Clyde Edwards-Helaire. And yeah, that was when the Chiefs had Tyreek Hill and they had Travis Kelce. Like, guys, you don't need a running back. Bijan's a luxury pick.
How about tight ends? I know they're not going to go super high up in the draft, but I happen to think this tight end class is very good. Michael Mayer is, I think, the most polished guy in terms of run blocking and receiving, was a dog at Notre Dame. Darnell Washington, though, some people are thinking of him as an extension of the offensive line. A big dude. He's like over 260 pounds, uber athletic, but I think he's a little bit raw in terms of receiving. Then you got Dalton Kincaid, who transferred to Utah and is just a guy that can catch any kind of a pass on any level of the football field. So don't sleep on those tight ends as well, maybe late in the first round.
I love Dalton Kincaid. He only played 1 year of high school football. He won an AAU basketball championship in high school. So he's got the basketball background. We know how well that translates to football. Think of guys like Jimmy Graham. And he was Kelsey-esque at Utah last year. They moved him all around the field, different spots, had over 70 catches, led all tight ends in the NCAA this year. That's a guy who I think brings great versatility, and on a team like maybe the Cowboys or the Packers, even the Jets, where you need pass catchers, it's a great fit.
Real quick, if I may, back to wide receivers. I think Quentin Johnston is the first wide receiver that needs to be drafted. So there's a wide receiver coach that coaches Johnston and JSN. He even said that Johnston should be drafted first because he's big and he can break off top of the route.
It all depends on what you need. You need a slot guy, that's JSN. If you need a big guy on the outside, then that's Johnson. On the defensive side, if you need something, well, Straff's got it. There's so much talent ready to go in the lottery, whether that's Jalen Carter, Will Anderson, Tyree Smith on the D-line. You got DBs, Christian Gonzalez, Devin Witherspoon. John, we'll start on the D-line because I think that's where the most top 10 intrigue is. We'll start with Jalen Carter, who had a lot to talk about this offseason. Yeah. The reckless driving charge, the pro day, that was just an absolute disaster. Where do you see him going?
Great football player, but he does have those red flag issues. I like the Detroit Lions at 6 as a spot for him before, we're going to talk about this later, the Jameson Williams issues. I don't think that the Lions right now can afford to take a guy that has those red flags. And what Jalen Carter has is the red flags. Insanely good football player, the most disruptive prospect since Quinnen Williams a couple years ago. It is super hard to find interior guys that can generate pressure on the quarterback. So that's the appeal for taking him. Who I love, though, is Tyree Wilson. He's 6'6". His wingspan is insane. It's like 3 feet long. He's got insane, or his arms are 3 feet long. His wingspan's 6 feet. He's got insane push. He can rush from anywhere, but those linebackers are excellent, too. It's kind of like Tyree Wilson or Will Anderson, who I know you really like.
I like Will Anderson. He's playing at a higher level than Tyree Wilson. Look, the SEC is the best conference. You got the best offensive linemen in college football. And Anderson was better than Aiden Hutchinson 2 years ago, and Aiden Hutchinson went 2nd overall. This is a guy you cannot pass on as a game wrecker and disruptor. He's going to be a captain in 2 years, and he'll be a disruptor from day one. DBs, though, I think you and I have split opinions on DBs. I like Devon Witherspoon just because of his intensity. I saw him play against Michigan, and he was all over the field making tackles in the run game. And I have him over a guy like Christian Gonzalez, who's longer, and I have Christian Gonzalez over Joey Porter. What do you think of that?
I like Joey Porter. The appeal on Gonzalez is that he's so raw athletically. His 40 speed is insane. But Joey Porter Jr., I mean, he is unreal. The way he jams receivers at the line of scrimmage. He's 6'2". He has that length. I mean, he will completely take a wide receiver out of the equation at the line of scrimmage. He will not let you run that route.
Only problem I have with Porter, he's two-handsy. Like, he wants to grab your jersey and
we
shake
saw
it
what happened
and
in the
rip
Super
it off.
Bowl. You can't do that.
So that's my problem. Gonzalez doesn't have that, and since he's quicker, he can keep up with receivers. So on the terms of corners, especially defensive guys, we got some sleepers as well, John. Who's your first one? Guys that we're underlooking, maybe overrated.
Well, these are people that maybe nationally nobody knows, but you and I certainly know. I'm starting with Kendre Miller, wide receiver, running back out of TCU. The guy is built like a linebacker. He was actually recruited as a linebacker, then switched to running back. He's over 6 feet tall. He's a bully. He will run through arm tackles. He's got great acceleration as well. In that college football playoff game, he single-handedly put this offense on his back. He had 224 carries in the season, 1,400 yards, 17 touchdowns. He's not sexy. He's not pretty. He's not a Bijan Robinson, but he's a 3-down running back, and he will just rack up that yak. Who's your sleeper?
Well, you know what's not very sexy? 315 pounds, a grown man in the middle. But Mozzie Smith is extremely attractive as a late first, early second round pick. because this guy eats up space. He had 34 bench press reps, the best for any D lineman in the combine. He also ran a 4.85-40, and he put up some numbers at Michigan in the weight room that will blow your mind. He's Bruce Feldman's #1 freak because he just controls everything inside the tackles, and that's big time for a team like the Bills who need some help in the middle.
I go back to the interior linemen. They're just so hard to find. And Smith is a run stopper, and he's a guy that can get you a sack at the D tackle position. Who's your next sleeper?
So we talk about traits. I love my big physical guys, starting with AR, the QB. And how about Darnell Washington? You mentioned him a little bit, but he needs more love. The guy is 6'7", 270, and he ran a 4.6-40. He was flying at the combine. And I think what you also have to look at with Darnell Washington is his blocking ability. Yeah. All these other tight ends are going to be guys you split out. Look to catch passes. You can't play him on first or second down per se, but Darnell Washington's your classic Y. You put him in line, you could even put him in pass pro and he'll be just fine. So that's why I like him as a very versatile piece for a team that's already developed, like the Bengals.
I agree, but I also think there's other tight ends that could fit that on the line mold as well. But you can't argue with 270 pounds and 4.6 speed. You just do not come across that very often. My last sleeper, A.T. Perry. You and I are very familiar with this guy.
We're deep in A.T. Perry territory.
Wake Forest wide receiver, super long, can catch through contact, can high point footballs down the field. An outside guy. He is a guy that'll run a 4.47 on the outside, which again, you don't really see very often, that kind of speed from outside receivers. So A.T. Perry is someone that will certainly catch people by surprise.
Keep an eye out for A.T. Perry on day 3. We saw him in the Dome 2 years ago. It was heartbreak for Syracuse fans. When we come back on No Pulp, we're switching over to Lax because Johns Hopkins got a big old win and John Eads is excited to talk about it. More No Pulp after this.
Look at you. You're at the top of your game. You're unstoppable. Nothing can throw you off track. Wait, is that your car? Uh-oh. Yeah, I saw that coming. That will throw you off track. You're looking at around 10 grand in fines, legal fees, and increased insurance rates. Let's try this again. Smart move. Because buzz driving is drunk driving.
Taking care of a family member can lead to plenty of questions. Fortunately, there's a place to get the answers, for them and for you. Find articles, tips, and tools from experts and others who have been in your place. The Caregiving Resource Center at aarp.org/caregiving.
Welcome back to No Pulp with Ian Unsworth. I'm John Eads. We're putting the NFL draft aside for just a second and talking some lacrosse. Specifically, we're diving into the Big Ten, Ian, where just like the basketball season and the football season some years, we don't really know who the best team is, and there's a lot of parity. So I'll give you 3 teams here. Johns Hopkins, Maryland, and Penn State. Those are the top 3 teams, I'd say, in the Big Ten. They've all kind of beaten up on each other. Johns Hopkins just beat Maryland on the road in a rivalry game. I ask you, who's the best team in the Big Ten?
Well, statistically, and I'm going to stay statistical here because we got the juicer coming up and you got opinions to put out there, I'm sticking with Penn State just because of offense and goalie play. The Nittany Lions have the best scoring offense, the best man-up offense in the conference, and then you've also got Jack Frasian, who's got the most saves and the best save percentage in the conference. Maryland can really control the middle of the field with Luke Wiernan and their rope unit, which is fantastic, but I'm sticking with the Nittany Lions. Hopkins has just figured it out. They had some tough losses early on, and I'm not a huge fan of their offense.
Well, Penn State actually beat Johns Hopkins in a head-to-head game in double overtime, so that was excellent. If that's the championship game of the Big Ten, I'm very pleased. But I like this Johns Hopkins team. They're super balanced. I think they finally figured out their recipe to win games. They're so balanced. They got so many scoring options. I like the Blue Jays to win the conference.
Well, how about the women's side? Because Syracuse, it's been #1 for almost the entire month of April, just fell to Boston College 17-16. Now the ACC, the best women's lacrosse conference in the country, is in a bit of flux. Yeah. So there are usually 3 teams at the top, BC, SU, and UNC. Now, with the ACC tournament coming into the fold, John, who's your favorite?
I still think it's Syracuse, and there's just something about Acacia Walker-Weinstein and Boston College that gives this Syracuse team fits. I looked back the past couple of years and all the games the Orange have lost to Boston College. They've had so many free position shots.
It's the free
I don't
positions.
know what it is about the offense they run, but they just get at least 8 free position shots a game.
It was 10-4 this year.
What are you going to do about that?
It's 10-4 this year, and I mean, Jen Levy, UNC's coach, just implemented rule suggestions eliminating the free position. So that's something that would change it in the future, but it's such a decider in women's lacrosse this year that BC wins every single year against the Cuse.
No excuses, though. You're up 11-6 at halftime. You're leading in the fourth quarter in front of a sold-out SU soccer stadium as the #1 team. You can't lose in that fashion.
And it's really tough, but now you go to a neutral field and you see what Syracuse can do because they're the 2 seed, so they'll probably see UNC again.
Yeah. Well, we're going to talk Syracuse, maybe some UNC as well in the juicer. That's coming up next. It's me and Jack Gordon, the 2 Lax Bros here at Citrus TV, going at it. You're not going to want to miss it. Coming up after the break.
Everybody has a dream. Mine was to see the ocean. And with a little help, I made it.
It is juicer time with these 2 hefty gentlemen, John Eads and Jack Gordon. I'm Ian Unsworth. This guy's at the lacrosse flow. This guy's a few years removed from picking up a long pole and running around it. What was that? U of D?
That's
Jesuit?
correct. That's
the
correct.
Cubs?
Yep.
And you played for?
Fayetteville Manlius, baby. Buzz, buzz.
The Hornets of Fayetteville Manlius and the U of D Cubs go at it head-to-head today in our juicer. So here's how it works. You've probably been with us all year. You get the drill, but just in case. First 3 questions worth 1, the final worth 2, so a bit more at stake when we get down to the nitty-gritty. But we start with some overrated and underrated teams. We'll start with the positives first. John, which team in the men's lacrosse scene are we underrating ahead of the tournament?
Taking my namesake, we're going Johns Hopkins here. We just talked about them a little bit. #2 team in the Big Ten right now. They're on a tear. They've won 7 of their last 8 games, and this offense is so freaking balanced. They have 7 legitimate scoring options. Jacob Angelis behind. Garrett Degnan is his sidekick. The midfield unit is super good as well. Not to mention Tim Marcille and Cage and guys like Scott Smith defensively. Super balanced on both sides of the field. I don't see a weakness. Maybe the one weakness was the face-off unit, but they just beat Maryland, the top face-off unit in the Big Ten, in the most recent game, which they won over the Terrapins. So no weaknesses with the Johns Hopkins team, and if you don't have weaknesses, you're going to win the whole dang thing.
Listen, John, I think the one issue is that Johns Hopkins is properly rated, and a team that isn't is Georgetown Hoyas. You might not believe I'm saying that 3 weeks into the season because they started 0-3. Since then, they've rattled off 9 in a row. This is a really experienced team. Lots of transfers on this squad. All they needed was to really get together, work together a lot more. Guys like Tucker Dordovic, I know you've heard that name before. Yep. Jacob Kelly, Nikki Solomon, some of the best offensive players in the country. They've also got James Riley, a dominant face-off man. This team could really surprise people and actually make a tournament run.
15-2, that's cute. They haven't beaten anybody. What elite win do they have? They almost lost to Marquette.
Princeton, Denver, Loyola, those are solid teams.
Let's slow down here.
Top of the Ivies right now.
The question was underrated. The question was underrated, and I can't underrate a team that's #4 in the country. So Georgetown gets our first point. So Jack, you'll kick it off next, and we're headed to the women's side. Which team on the women's lacrosse scene are we underrated heading into their tournament?
Well, this one is because of a pretty recent game, and it's Boston College. I think we are underrating them because what has the national championship conversation been so far this season? Syracuse and Northwestern. Well, BC just took down the best team in the country in Syracuse. They've got a shot to win the whole thing. They've got experience. Jenna Medjid, Belle Smith, Sydney Scales. It's a real team. They've rattled off 7 in a row. And like I said, they beat Syracuse. That means a lot. They can get lost in the shuffle because in the ACC, sometimes we think of SU and UNC first. But the only issue is we forget that Boston College is right there, if not better.
I don't think anybody's forgetting at Boston College. They won the national championship a couple of years ago. Charlotte North dominated the headlines. And I think they're very appropriately rated, as you just said about my Johns Hopkins answer. Did you know that Denver has a women's lacrosse team, Jack?
I'm aware.
You are?
They're all
I'm surprised because not many do. Nobody knows about Denver. Lo and behold, this is the only team in women's college lacrosse that is undefeated right now. Why are we not hearing about this team? They have blown out everybody since the month of March. They haven't had a game closer than 5 goals since March 5th. They beat Maryland. They beat Boston College, that team you just talked about. And I haven't seen them in my Twitter feed at all. Now, I don't follow many college women's lacrosse accounts, mind you, but still, not even in the For You section. I mean, what are we doing here? Nobody knows about this team. They haven't lost a game.
See, that's not a real lax rat. A real lax rat would have lacrosse all over his Twitter. You can't.
Denver plays in the A-Sun, which doesn't get enough love. So, John,
which means they
you
play
and the
nobody.
Pioneers are 1-1. We are even after 2 questions here on the Juicer. We go from positive to negative, and of course, since we talked about underrated, we have to talk about overrated, going back to the men's side. And John Eads, I hand it to you to present us with your overrated team on the men's lacrosse landscape.
Thank you, Ian. I'll give you an overrated team and an overrated league. How about the Ivy League, the nerds? They're not good at lacrosse this year, all right? I love the Cursed family, Cole and CJ. No disrespect, but all Cornell has is CJ Cursed. That's it. And you need to have more options to win a national championship. 10-2 Cornell team. I don't know why they're in the top 10. Cursed is the only reason why. They have not beaten anybody. Their best win, I guess, is Army, who is 10-2, which is solid as well. But again, they haven't beaten anybody either. The Ivy League is terrible. Cornell is not good this year. They haven't played any ACC teams. Cornell's just in the top 10 to be in the top 10. There's really no reason, no valid reason why they should be there. So I just think Cornell is extremely overrated. This is maybe a borderline top 20 team.
Listen, a national championship runner-up, and they probably got the best offensive player in Cursed. All right.
One player.
You forget about Gavin Adler,
10.
too. He's probably the best defender in the country. Don't just mention CJ Cursed.
You
mentioned Cornell needs other players. You know who has no players? Penn State. They have nobody that can put the team on their back and actually go out and win a lacrosse game. People say defense wins championships. That's not true in lacrosse anymore. Penn State's offense is nowhere. It's 33rd in efficiency this season, 54th in turnovers. They don't do the little things right. They've got no shot in the tournament this year. You need a guy. They don't have that guy. There's no Brennan O'Neill. There's no CJ Cursed. Penn State is just a defensive team, and they don't last anymore in the tournament these days.
How can you say that? They beat Johns Hopkins and they won the Big Ten.
Well, but the Big Ten...
That's the Big Ten. Let me see them beat an ACC team, John.
I'm cutting you off, guys. I'm cutting you off. All right, we got to pay the bills here. And since Penn State has been beaten and is beating people, and I also saw Cornell smack the heck out of Syracuse last year in the Dome.
That was last year.
I'm going with Jack, and Penn State is the most overrated team, and that's the selection. So, Jack, last chance to seal the deal here on the Lacrosse Juicer. Which Willax team is overrated?
Ian, I got to go with the 5th-ranked team in the country. It's James Madison. You want to talk teams playing nobody? Well, James Madison, what the heck conference are they even playing? Yes, they win a lot of games. They're 15-1 right now. Yeah, boo-hoo. Who are they playing? They haven't played Syracuse, BC. They lost to North Carolina. Their one actual shot against a real team. They don't have a top 10 win, but they beat Virginia and Maryland, but so did Syracuse. I don't think they have an actual shot against any real contenders. They are vastly overrated. James Madison doesn't have a shot against these talented teams in the country.
Totally disagree. First of all, James Madison is in the American Athletic Conference. They've lost 1 game this year. It was to UNC, but you know when that was? When Syracuse men's basketball still had a chance to make the NCAA tournament back in February.
That's a long time ago, I'll give you that.
Okay? They are not overrated. They beat Maryland. They have elite wins. They haven't lost since that game, and it has not been close. All right. Anyways, in terms of my pick, Virginia. They're the number 11 team in the country right now, and for what? They've lost 2 games over the past month to Syracuse and to North Carolina by a combined 24 goals. You may as well have stayed in Charlottesville and not even showed up to the game. They have no elite wins. Their defense is terrible. Their goalie is a cone. They have 2 goalies. They don't even know which one it is. Both goalies under 38% save percentage. They have no idea who they should trot out there between the pipes. Virginia is overrated. They're a first-round loser.
John, I couldn't agree anymore. You are so right. And no one else thinks they're good. That's why they're not overrated, John. They're not a top 10 team in the country. They're not going to win the conference. They're barely going to scrape by in the tournament. You're right. They're not good. And nobody believes in them. That's why they can't actually be overrated.
I just critique teams harder than anybody.
Okay.
Nobody else.
Okay. Gentlemen.
They're not good.
Gentlemen, I have graded by the language of the question for the first 3 questions. And I hate to be that guy, but James Madison hasn't played a ranked team in a month.
How is Virginia overrated? Nobody actually rates them as good.
It doesn't matter if you don't play anybody. You may as well not play anybody. They've lost by 12 goals to Syracuse and UNC.
But nobody thinks they're good. John, it makes no sense.
John Eads is our winner of the juicer. John,
thank you.
Here's your crown. Does it fit? Kind of fits. All right. Either way, the crown is on John's head, and the last juicer, he prevails. After this, we'll have your top plays and everything else you need to know as we exit on this final No Pulp.
Here's to the straggly ones, the first ones. But hey, I look good with this ones. The black, brown, red, and gray ones. The itchy ones. The ones grown by Dad. The ones grown for Dad. The I nearly didn't do it this year ones. And the absolutely filthy ones. They all raise awareness, raise funds, start conversations, and save lives. Because whatever you grow will save a bro. Learn more at Movember.com.
Here you go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Never gonna let you go. Never gonna let you go.
Taking you home one last time here on No Pulp. John Eads is somewhere over there. I'm Ian Unsworth, and we're so happy to have you with us because it's time for the plays of the week. The highlights, the stuff you've been waiting for. We're going to give college baseball a little love because why not? We'll take you down to Clemson, South Carolina. Actually, this is in Raleigh, North Carolina, because Clemson and NC State faced off last weekend, and the play of the week here is Caden Grice. Holy cow, what a swing. 441 feet, 110 miles an hour off the bat. This guy also pitched on Sunday and got the win. The Tigers swept the Wolfpack. Clemson's getting hot at the right time on the way to the NCAA Tournament. Eric Bakic's first year as the Tigers head coach. Gosh, that's a nuke.
Clemson baseball getting hot. Ian, Johns Hopkins lacrosse also getting hot. I think I'm developing an affinity for the Blue Jays. They've been so good lately, specifically Russell Melendez. We just got out of the juicer. He put his defender in the juicer in this goal in the Maryland game. Watch this. He doesn't juke him originally, sticks with the play, beats him to the top, flings it in. And that's the game-winning goal. Johns Hopkins beats Maryland and wins the Wooden Crab in the rivalry.
I don't have that vocal range. Flings!
I didn't either.
Flings!
Just happened.
Got to do a couple exercises to get that right. But we'll settle down here, and I'm going a little serious for my final word. Guys, especially those in the NFL, can we please stop gambling? Right? Like, you guys get a lot of money to play sports, and you do so much great stuff day in and day out. But Jamison Williams, you have just put your future in jeopardy by gambling on a college sporting event. Calvin Ridley, you have a year sitting on the sidelines because you placed a parlay. You have so much money, you have so much at stake. Your entire future is right there for you guys, right? Go play blackjack. Go to Vegas. You got the money. Get a PJ. You can do it. Just don't put money on sports. There are so many other things to get addicted to, right? Just not gambling, please.
Yeah, Ian, I don't get it. As a Detroit Lions fan, I'm extremely upset. And you, Jamison Williams, who I'm not upset with, Johns Hopkins lacrosse. Now, when you think of Johns Hopkins lacrosse, what comes to mind? Maybe it's Paul Rabel. Maybe it's Kyle Harrison. Or perhaps it's that weird crab trophy they play for against Maryland. Well, hey, the Blue Jays won that crab trophy in what's called the rivalry over the weekend. And hey, that's just a minor scene in the movie this year that can be called the Johns Hopkins Resurgence. The Jays have won 11 games this year, their most wins in the last 5 years. Look, the bottom line is that this team is a top 4 team. They're playing for a Big Ten title soon. And let's not forget, this is the winningest lacrosse program in the sport's history. The Jays are officially back.
You like Old Bay?
I do. Good seasoning.
Those Maryland people, man. It's called the rivalry. That game between Hopkins and Maryland.
All right. Enough of a rivalry. Enough of Johns Hopkins. I've heard way too much about them.
I know you have.
And I've loved getting to hear from both of you for these last 4 years. I know it's your last show on this desk and here at Citrus TV. So from myself, I want to say personally, thank you to you guys. You guys are great broadcasters. You're going to have great careers. You're an inspiration. And from all of us at Citrus TV, too, we just want to thank you for everything you've done, all your hard work. You guys have been amazing.
Thank you, Jack.
Sorry I had to send you out with an outfit.
It's okay.
I love you.
You did great.
Means a lot. For John Eads, Jack Gordon, our executive producer, Liam Griffin, and everyone else here at Citrus TV, thanks so much for watching. Have a great night.